Hello and welcome once again to the video. In this one I shall be continuing my look at every Grand Prix in the 2025 Formula One World Championship. Just a fan's perspective. I've been a fan for decades, and I don't have the technical know-how, so it's just from a fan's perspective. I will be doing my usual routine of listing the top 20 finishes, the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, and the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. I have had a little bit of feedback on the pen that I use, that it's a little bit too scratchy. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to look into alternatives. Well, I have actually, amongst the pens I have, but nothing's as good as that at the moment, and they all pretty much sound the same. But I will look into that a little bit more so to see what I can do. But these back-to-back races, plus the Easter holidays with the kids, has made it tricky for me to find the time. Okay, so let's dive in. These, as I've said, are just my opinions. Obviously, some people are going to agree with my opinions, some are going to disagree, and some are going to be indifferent. We all have different opinions, but I welcome all comments from anyone who disagrees with my opinions or wants to simply voice a different opinion. I think that's great. I think that encourages conversation about the sport that we all love. So, yeah, keep them coming. Keep those comments coming. Yeah, I do get some fiery comments sometimes, but I do welcome them. And remember, these are only my opinions. Who's to say if my opinions are accurate in any way? I obviously think they are, but doesn't mean they are, of course. Right. So this was round 5. I could put Jeddah. I'll put Saudi Arabia. There you go. God, what an incredibly difficult track that is. It came in 2021, didn't it, Saudi Arabia? At that amazing race, really strange race between Hamilton and Verstappen, where they both basically stopped in the middle of the track just before a DRS line. Yeah, so yeah, it's a very amazing circuit. 27 corners, the most, more than any other circuit. I learned that this weekend. I didn't realise it had more corners. Of course, a lot of those corners are just sort of bends, really. But yeah, more than any other circuit on the F1 circuit, basically. Very difficult race. I mean, I've played it on PC game. It's not quite the same as the real thing, I understand, but you can certainly tell that it's a very, very difficult track. Which is why it was incredible that Oliver Bearman got 7th place last year. Anyway, let's do the top 20 without further ado. First place was Piastri, of course. And Verstappen. Leclerc. Norris. Next. Then we have Russell. Antonelli. And then, of course, as usual, 7th we have Hamilton. Head of the Williams, wasn't it? Sainz and Albon. Followed by Hadjar. Now, hopefully that's all in focus. I like to think that is in focus. Yeah, I think it is. Or it is now, anyway. So, Alonso. Followed by, Lawson and then Bearman. And then Ocon and Hulkenberg. And then we got Stroll. And Doohan. Bortoleto, and then the two retirees. Tsunoda and Gasly. Okay, so the championship. We have just that a little bit. So we've got 99 points. Piastri, Norris is on 89. Verstappen 87. Leclerc 47. Antonelli 38. Hamilton 31. Albon 20. Ocon 14. And Stroll on 10. And the constructors. Let's check the focus again, very important. Okay, so McLaren 188. 111. Red Bull 89. Ferrari 78. Williams 25. Haas on 20. Aston Martin. On 10. I've put plural, never mind. Then Sauber. Alpine. It's weird, isn't it, to see Alpine last in the Constructors' Championship when Gasly's driving so well. Doing really well in both qualifying and the race at the moment. And yet Alpine is still last in the championship. Okay, so what did we think of that race? But let me do the focus again. So what did we think of that race? Fastest lap was Norris. And despite that, I'm still glad that we don't give points for fastest lap. Because if we did, fastest lap might have gone to Bortoleto or something, you know. some ridiculous fastest lap set on the last lap on soft tyres. So that's a genuine fastest lap, which is good. Okay, so that's now 3 wins for Piastri. Look at that. Norris has only had 1, Verstappen's had 1, McLaren have had 4, Red Bull have had 1. So, Norris, qualifying, what's going on? Just a little tiny mistake. They were all making mistakes. I don't know if Piastri did. He's been pretty bulletproof in qualifying, but maybe he made a little mistake. But there were lots of drivers that made little mistakes, touched the wall. Unfortunately, Norris more than touched the wall, so he qualified 10th. So he started on hards. Those 2 crashes, yeah. Firstly, the Gasly-Tsunoda one. Now, I sort of probably obviously there was no follow-up to that because they were both retired, and it was the first lap of the race. But if you had to apportion blame, I would put it on Tsunoda, because Gasly was ahead at the apex, and that was a rule change that came in. I don't know if it came in for the start of 2025 or if it came in partway through 2024, even possibly. But certainly it's in existence now, where if you're ahead at the apex, then the other driver who's trying to overtake you has to back off. This was following an incident, I forget what Grand Prix it was. Was it the US Grand Prix, maybe? Last year with Norris and Verstappen, where Norris went round the outside. Verstappen held his line. Norris had to go off track. And then I think, I don't know, I can't remember who was ahead at the apex. Who was ahead at the apex on that particular occasion? Possibly Norris was, I don't know. But anyway, the rule wasn't in place to respect who was slightly ahead at the apex. Now it is. And Gasly was ahead against Tsunoda. Quite clearly ahead, you could see quite clearly. So, listening to the interviews afterwards, I think Tsunoda was basically taking the blame for it. There's not a lot he could do, though. I mean, he's on cold tyres at the start of the race, cars all around him. Yes, it was Gasly's corner, but you know, Tsunoda obviously just slid into him, which can happen at the first lap. So, racing incident, but it was Gasly's corner because he was head at the apex. Now, with Piastri and Verstappen, this is my genuine opinion, but there'll be some out there that I'm just bashing Max. But Piastri certainly looked like he was ahead at the apex of the corner, and the FIA, who have gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, has said that he was ahead. I'm gonna get lots of messages about apexes now. I think but I do welcome them. Okay, if I've got anything wrong, or if there's other opinions out there that disagree with mine, I love receiving them and replying to them. So yeah, that's great. But to me, it certainly looked like, and please correct me if I'm wrong with the idea that there's a rule come in that whoever's ahead at the apex of the corner, it's their corner. I believe that rule had come in after all the shenanigans last year with the constant overtaking attempts around the outside by Norris, where he would end up in the, off the track. But here, I would say Piastri had the apex to the corner. It was his corner. So, after the incident, after the race, I think both Max and Horner have said, where could we go? What could I do? Where could he go? Sort of thing. But you can always apply the brakes, of course, or at least take your foot off the accelerator. You don't have to drive through an accident or through a situation. You can back out of a situation. Instead, Verstappen chose to put his foot down and just go for it, knowing that he wouldn't make the corner, so he went off the track. So obviously you hand the position back, but he didn't. Now, I think he didn't, not because he thought he was necessarily innocent of anything. I think he didn't hand it back because handing back the position would be more damaging than having a 5-second penalty. The FIA said that they would normally give a 10-second penalty for that, but because it was at the start of the race, they're more lenient. In the end, he still lost the win, undoubtedly down to that 5-second penalty in the pits. But as Horner said, they didn't, or Horner actually revealed something, because he said, oh, we didn't hand the place back because we would have been in the clutches of Russell then. He would have been all over us. So is that Horner admitting that Max was actually to blame and should have either handed the position back or had a penalty? Because he was saying, he's not saying the reason why we didn't hand the position back is because Max was totally innocent and is just being bullied by the FIA. No, he said we didn't hand the position back because we would have been in the clutches of George Russell. So there you go. But anyway, Max didn't really want to comment about it after the race because he said he'll just get into trouble with the FIA for giving comments. I don't think he would, unless his comments that he would give are massively critical of the FIA. I know he thinks that for years he's thought he's been bullied by the FIA. I don't know why he thinks that. I mean, the history in recent years, some might suggest that he's the opposite of bullied by the FIA, if you look at previous history. But he certainly thinks, for whatever reason, that he always comes off worse with FIA decisions. And of course, devout Max fans will undoubtedly agree with that. I'm sure they would. Not all, but a lot would. But anyway, to me, that was a bit of a slam dunk, going by the rules that whoever's ahead at the apex, it's their corner. And you can see that Piastri is ahead at the apex, very slightly, but he is ahead. Unless I've got that rule wrong, but I don't think I have. But anyway, I welcome all comments. So yeah, that sort of ruined it for Verstappen. He would have probably won that race, I'm sure. Not by a lot, but I'm sure he would have won it had that not happened. Would he have? Good thing is though, if he'd handed the place back, would he have successfully fended off Russell, and would he have managed to get past Piastri? Maybe Piastri in open air would have pulled away. The super frustrating thing is that Norris in open air, I think, is the quickest one out there. Well, I think the all-round best driver is Verstappen. I don't think anyone can argue with that. He is the all-round best driver. Single lap qualifying, you might put Leclerc there, but overall pace throughout a race, tactics, everything, you'd have to put Verstappen out front as the best. But when you factor in the cars they've got and everything, I would say that Norris is the fastest driver this year out front. Problem is, he's never out front, apart from Australia, where he qualified on pole and so therefore won the race, and would have finished further ahead had there not been so many safety cars. I mean, he was 15 seconds ahead of Verstappen at one point, Norris in Australia. Not that far ahead of Piastri, of course. Piastri's been right with him. But the big difference between Norris and Piastri is qualifying. Piastri is sublimely cool and efficient and not making mistakes in qualifying. And this year seems to be all about qualifying. Norris, he is making mistakes. And he qualified 6th in Bahrain, wasn't it? Chinese Grand Prix, the sprint, he qualified 8th or something, was it? And here he 10th because of his accident. So it's all down to quali, which he knows. After the race, he mentioned that himself. I still think that Norris is the favourite for the championship. And I'm not saying that because he's English. and I'm English. Yes, I want the British drivers to win. I would like the British drivers to be first, second, third and fourth in the championship. But that doesn't mean I favour them with my opinions at all. Piastri is driving better in qualifying than Norris, and that's why he's leading the championship. I still think, though, that Norris has the edge in race pace if he can just get himself clear of the crowd, basically. If he can get himself out front. Hopefully in Miami, for his sake, he will get up there on the front row of the grid and then get to the first corner first, and then he'll win comfortably by miles. Sorry, not by miles. Piastri won't be far behind, but he would win, in my view. The problem is overtaking. You know, if he's on the front row of the grid and he doesn't get to the first corner first, then there's a problem, because Norris does seem to have an issue, a confidence issue, I think, with overtaking, which Piastri certainly doesn't seem to have. When you look at his overtaking manoeuvre on Hamilton today, that was incredibly bold. And Verstappen was not able to pull the same move on Hamilton when he came up to him. So that could have been a race-winning move for Piastri on Hamilton there. Yeah, so what else? I've covered those two accidents, haven't I? The Norris versus Hamilton swapsies, that was something else that Norris was surprisingly inexperienced at noticing. Was it 2 or 3 laps? Certainly, I think a couple of laps. Hamilton was able to do the old switcheroo with the DRS. Exactly the games that Verstappen and Hamilton were playing at this track in 2021. Norris should have been aware of that. He was overtaking Hamilton too early. They were going across the DRS line, and then Hamilton was repassing. And that happened, I think, twice, 2 laps running, before Norris suddenly twigged. Actually, on the second attempt, Norris did try to overtake later, but Hamilton was a bit cheeky and slowed up in order to sort of force Norris to overtake him, which was what Verstappen did in 2021. A bit cheeky by Lewis. In 2021, it resulted in Lewis driving into the back of Max. This time, fortunately, that didn't happen. I have only seen the move once, so I can't remember now if it was particularly dangerous, if Lewis braked right in front of Norris, or if Norris was already to one side. I'm not sure, but I think they need to do something about that for future races, because you can't have cars deliberately slowing because of the DRS line. Bit naughty. Anyway, because Norris took his time to get past Lewis, that probably lost him 3rd place, maybe. Might have lost him 3rd place to Leclerc. Leclerc, who's driving better and better, and he's increasing the gap between himself and Hamilton all the time. And Hamilton, after this race, said, it's not the car, because Leclerc got 3rd place. It's not the car. I'm just struggling. I mean, the car is weak, and Leclerc is having to fight to get the car up there. But, Hamilton is weaker, basically. So that's down to Lewis. How long do you need to get used to a new car? I mean, Leclerc himself nearly won his first race in a Ferrari in Bahrain in 2019, wasn't it? He was in the Alfa Romeo in 2018. He went to Ferrari in 2019, I think. Didn't he? And he came 3rd in that race, but he would have won it, but for a issue with his gearbox, was it? So that didn't take Leclerc very long to. But then again, Leclerc had only had 1 year in the Alfa Romeo. Hamilton has been at Mercedes for donkey's year, 12 years, 12 seasons, something like that. So unfortunately, I think Hamilton's become a little bit set in his ways at Mercedes, and that's what's making it more difficult to move across to Ferrari. But he hasn't got long left in his career. He can't build on this for a few years. This year's championship, of course, is gone. This year's hope of winning a race is probably gone. let's just hope that next year Hamilton is properly slotted in with that Ferrari. Russell, of course, also driving extremely well. Actually, talking about Leclerc, I'd have to say, being English, I always want an English or a British driver to win the championship. Nothing wrong with that. Every single Brazilian F1 fan wants a Brazilian to win the championship. Every single Dutch F1 fan wants Verstappen to win the championship. There's nothing unusual about that. Every Australian wants Piastri to win. So there's nothing unusual about that. But if I would want Leclerc to win, basically, if it wasn't one of the British drivers, simply because he's good enough to have already won a world championship. It's a shame he didn't in 2022, really. But somehow he didn't. But that's a shame. But he's good enough to already be world champion. Should already be world champion. And he's comes across really well as well. He comes across like a nice guy. So yeah, I'd want Leclerc to win if it wasn't a British driver. Norris. Both Norris and Hamilton are struggling in qualifying, of course. It's not just Norris, Hamilton as well. Is that his single lap pace dropping off as he gets older? As all the drivers say happens when they retire, they say, oh yeah, my qualifying pace went. I said at the beginning of the year that I was hoping this wasn't going to be an anticlimax and we're actually going to see a much weaker Hamilton, because he was a lot weaker in 2024 in the Mercedes. You know, he had a terrible year despite winning 2 races. One of them he finished behind Russell, and the other one should have been won by the McLarens. So he had a terrible 2024. I thought he would be rejuvenated in the Ferrari, but I also worried that it would be the complete opposite, and he's actually he's over the hill, basically. You remember when Schumacher came back in 2010? Everyone thought he was going to blow Rosberg away, and everyone felt sorry for Rosberg. Oh, poor young Rosberg, he's got to cope with Schumacher coming back. Well, it wasn't a problem for Rosberg at all. Schumacher was in the Mercedes for 3 years, and he kept saying, oh yeah, you wait, you know, in a few races time I'll be back to full speed. He never got back to full speed. And I'm worrying that might be the case with, well, worrying might be too strong a word, but I'm wondering if that might be the case with Hamilton. Is he just too old? Problem is, he looks at Alonso and thinks, oh, he's still going, he's 4 years older than me, but not everyone ages at the same speed. So that does concern me a little bit about Hamilton. Hadjar, fantastic performance. Look at that, 10th place. He's doing really well. He's beating Lawson. Lawson is maybe still a little bit damaged by his experience with Red Bull at the beginning of the year. But other drivers, when they stepped down, when they were fired, like Kvyat and Gasly, Albon, they immediately performed better in the lower team. Confidence came back again, but it's not happened with Lawson. It seems that seems to have really damaged him. And I remember someone commenting on my channel about a year ago saying that they hoped Lawson didn't go to Red Bull because they were worried that it was going to damage him. It was going to be too soon and it was going to damage him. And I sort of poo-pooed that and said, no, I don't think so. I think Lawson's good enough to be able to cope with it. He's confident. He's extremely confident. He struts around the paddock with full confidence beaming from his face. That would, that confidence would challenge even even Russell's confidence. But it looks like that person was right, and basically I was wrong, and Lawson is damaged, or his confidence is damaged anyway. I just hope it comes back because he's a very good driver. Antonelli driving very well. Yes, he is in a Mercedes, so he's going to be beating the other rookies, but he's consistently scoring 38 points now. 4 out of the 5 races have been in the top 6, so he's doing really well. Very good performance. But yeah, Hadjar, is beating Lawson at the moment. Sainz, I'm glad that Sainz has got in there and put in a good performance. Mr. Wide-eyed Sainz. He could have gone quicker as well, but he was going slow so that Albon could stay within the DRS to protect Albon from Hadjar. So Sainz sort of dragged Albon through the last part of the race. Teamwork. Bearman, still doing good. He's still not too bad. I mean, he finished ahead of Ocon. No points, but he's still not doing too bad. Blah blah blah. Look, where's Alonso? 11th. He nearly scored a point. He still hasn't scored a point in 5 races. But he's just thinking next year with Adrian Newey. That's all he'll be thinking about. Doohan, yeah, we're not really seeing much of Doohan. I said there's no way that Alpine will replace Doohan this year, and I might end up wrong there. I was wrong about Lawson being swapped, and I'll probably be wrong about Doohan, possibly, if he keeps putting in not particularly strong performances. The difference is that with Lawson, they can easily swap between the two teams, Red Bull and Racing Bull. That's not the case with Alpine. They've only got one team, so I still think he'll stay the year. What else did I? Oh yeah, Russell burned through his tyres. That's why he came 5th. He'll be a bit disappointed with that, which is good that he's disappointed with that, because he's had a fantastic year so far. I think Piastri's driving really well in qualifying and holding it together really well in the race. I think Norris is driving very fast in the races, but messing up qualifying. Leclerc is dragging a weak Ferrari up to the front, more and more so now. So he's putting in very good performances. Verstappen has been outstanding in the Red Bull, even though it is basically designed around him, tailor-made for Max. And Russell and Antonelli are driving very well. They're all driving very well. I don't know about Hamilton. Is he? He would say he isn't. But so yeah, I mean, I guess he isn't really. But that's not down to his talent, is it? Anyway, we've discussed him. Sainz drove very well in practice, pre-season testing, I should say. He's had a few issues since, but he put in a good performance here. You have to drive well to beat Albon in that Williams. So they're all driving well, apart from maybe Hamilton, and apart from Norris in qualifying. Actually, you could say it's the qualifying of Norris and Hamilton is the weakness out of those top drivers, or top drivers in the championship here. The two glaring weaknesses are both qualifying, and they're both Hamilton and Norris. Although Hamilton's not particularly strong in the races either, it has to be said. Williams back up to 5th place again. That's very good. Yeah, what else? Nothing else, I don't think. Yeah, so there you go. So I'll finish it there then. Come on, Norris. Well, I want to see a battle between Piastri and Norris. I want Piastri to take on Norris. I was very excited to see Piastri v Verstappen at the start of this race. I thought that was going to be interesting, and it was. And I want to see Norris v Piastri at the front. All right, so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. Or please comment if you want to. I will reply to the comments, even if they're having a go at me a little bit for my opinions. I still welcome those comments and will reply to them. If you'd like to like the video, or even if you'd like to leave a tip on the thanks button below the video. But basically, thank you for watching this particular video. And I will see you at the next video. The next Grand Prix is 2 weeks' time. But before then, what I'll do next week is an F1 video on the Saturday. I tend to do non-F1 videos on the Saturday of a Grand Prix weekend. And when it's not a Grand Prix weekend, I release an F1 video. to make up for that. Right, once again, thank you for watching and thank you for listening, and goodbye for now.